All right, let's move on to our character's hair. We'll switch off the bucket rendering for now because Daz's hair can be very slow to render, unfortunately. Then we'll hide the jewelry layer and show the hair layer. And if we take a look at our hair materials down here, there are loads of these, which again is contributing to the slow render speeds. So the first thing I want to do is try and reduce the amount of materials by merging some of these together as well. And I can already see there's a bunch of duplicates in here. So let's come over to material here and we'll sort these by name, which might make finding the duplicates a bit easier. And we'll start merging any similar materials together the same way we did in previous lessons. And I think we can merge all these braid materials. And if you're having trouble doing this, it might be because the render view is active. So let's disable that for a second. And this should be a bit more responsive now. So we'll finish merging those. And this one looks a bit different, so we better keep that one. And same with this one. But these hair fine materials all look the same, so we'll merge those as well. And these two, and these. And this one's definitely the same as this one, so we'll plonk him onto there. And finally, these guys here. So that's looking a bit more respectable now. So the next thing I'm going to do is go into each of these and disconnect the imported bump blender. Because in this particular scene, all the bump actually does is slow down the render. But if we disconnect this, it renders faster and it doesn't actually look any different. So I'll scoot ahead and do the same for all of these. And we'll fire off a render to see how that's looking. And it'll probably be faster if we just grab the region around the hair. And we might do a bucket render instead so we can see the finished product. And it's not looking too bad, maybe just a bit too dark. So what we can do is just grab the materials with the alpha channels, which are the main strands of hair, and we'll also pause the render for now. If we take a look at each material, we can add some backlighting to these as well, because they are just 2D strips of hair and therefore very thin, so light should be able to penetrate those. So let's crank up the weight. But instead of using this default gray color, I'll pipe the diffuse texture map into there, which looks something like this. So I'll plug that in here into the backlighting translucency color channel. And again, I'll do the same to all of these materials that have an alpha channel. Then we can grab all of them and we can check the backlighting settings on all of these together and just make sure the weight is all set to 1. And we'll fire off another render and that's looking a bit brighter now. So let's move on to the flowers. So I'll head back to our layers and activate the flower layer. And for speed, we'll switch back to progressive mode. And we'll take a look at our flower materials. And just like all the other materials we've imported, the bump on these is way too much and not really needed. So I'm going to disconnect those on these as well. So we'll go through all of these. But these last two materials are identical, so I'll just merge these as well. And doing that should speed things up again for us. So let's bring the region up on the flowers and try another bucket render. And again, I think these are looking a bit too dark as well. And because flower petals are quite thin, we could probably brighten these up the same way by adding some backlighting. So we'll do the same thing again and connect our diffuse texture, which looks like this, up to that as well. And do the same for all of these. Then we'll grab them all and set the backlighting weight to 1. And it only looks like half the flowers are brighter now, so there might be a missing material, which might explain the flowery looking material back in the hair materials. So I guess we'll just do the same thing to this one as well. And remove the bump on that too. And that seems to have fixed that. So now that we've got all of our materials sorted out, let's come back to the layers and turn everything back on. Then we'll disable the render region and fire off one last bucket render to see our whole character. And I think our character is coming along nicely now. So let's leave this there and we'll add the finishing touches in the next lesson.